A rattlesnake strikes from 40 centimeters away, and it misses. It should not have missed. The strike takes about 70 milliseconds, faster than a human being can blink, faster than most nervous systems can register that anything happened at all. The snake was coiled, hidden, and the animal in front of it never saw it move. And the animal is not there anymore. In the fraction of a second between the snake committing and the fangs arriving, a kangaroo rat weighing 40 grams left the ground, went almost half a meter straight up, and kicked the snake in the head on the way past. At normal speed, the human eye sees a snake lunge at empty sand. This is the Sonoran Desert, the hottest in North America, and by a wide margin, the most alive. Subscribe to DocWild 4K and turn on the bell. Every week we go somewhere most cameras never reach. Tell us in the comments what country or state you are watching from. Now let's go in, because there is a lizard here whose venom is being used to treat diabetes in millions of people. There is a bird of prey here that hunts in organized packs, which no other raptor in the world does. There is an amphibian in this sand right now, a frog in a desert that has been underground for 11 months waiting for one specific sound. And there is one more. There is a wasp here that does not kill what it catches. It paralyzes it, buries it alive, and its offspring eats the animal over several weeks from the inside in an order deliberately chosen to keep it alive as long as possible. We are going to that one at the end. It covers about 100,000 square miles across Arizona, California, and northwestern Mexico. Ground temperatures pass 70 degrees Celsius, summer air goes above 45, and there are stretches where no rain falls at all. Start with the animal that just failed. The Sidewinder is a small rattlesnake, rarely over 80 centimeters, and it solved the two problems of moving across loose sand in daylight with one motion. Instead of sliding forward, it throws segments of its body sideways, touching the ground at only 2 points at a time and lifting the rest clear. That gives it traction on a surface that gives way underfoot, and it means only a fraction of its body is ever in contact with sand hot enough to cook tissue. It leaves a track that looks nothing like a snake, a series of parallel J-shaped marks, angled away from the direction it was actually traveling. It hunts by sitting still. It shuffles down into the sand until only the top of its head shows and waits, sometimes for days. And it does not need to see anything because it has pits. Between the eye and the nostril on each side is a heat-sensing organ so precise it can detect a temperature difference of a small fraction of a degree. The snake is building a thermal image of what is in front of it. A mouse in complete darkness behind a bush is a bright shape on a cold background. The venom is hemotoxic. It destroys tissue and blood vessels rather than attacking nerves. And the snake does not hold on to what it bites. It strikes, releases, and lets the animal run. Then it follows the scent trail and finds the body, already partly digested from the inside. But it lives beside prey that has spent millions of years studying it. The kangaroo rat is the reason this desert has an ecology at all, and almost nobody has heard of it. It weighs between 40 and 150 grams depending on the species. It moves on 2 legs with a long tufted tail for balance, and it can leave the ground almost instantly from a standing position. And here is the thing that matters most about it. It never drinks. Not rarely, never. A kangaroo rat can live an entire life without a single drink of liquid water, in a place with ground temperatures past 70 degrees. It does that by not losing any. It eats dry seeds and produces water metabolically as a byproduct of breaking those seeds down. The same reaction that happens in every animal, including you, except that here it is the entire supply. Its kidneys concentrate urine to a level that is among the most extreme measured in any mammal. It has no sweat glands. Its nasal passages are built to condense moisture back out of its own exhaled breath before it leaves the body. And it spends the entire day sealed in a burrow it plugs from the inside, so the humidity of its own breathing accumulates around it instead of escaping. It comes out at night, and at night the snakes are waiting, which produced the duel we started with. High-speed cameras had to be brought into this desert to find out what was actually happening. When they were finally pointed at these encounters in the field, they showed kangaroo rats reacting after the strike had already begun, launching vertically, sometimes clearing the snake entirely, sometimes delivering a mid-air kick with both hind feet powerful enough to knock a striking rattlesnake off course. Some escapes happen in under 100 milliseconds. The rat is reacting faster than the snake can complete a motion the snake has already started. Neither animal is winning permanently. That is the point. Each generation of snakes is a filter on the rats, and each generation of rats is a filter on the snakes. And this has been running for millions of years in the same sand. And the kangaroo rat is doing something else that shapes everything around it. It gathers seeds obsessively and caches them in scattered underground stores, and it does not retrieve all of them. The ones it forgets germinate. In parts of this desert, the distribution of plants is substantially a map of what a small rodent buried and failed to come back for. Now the animal that made this desert famous in medicine. The Gila monster is one of only a handful of venomous lizards on Earth, and the only one native to the United States. It reaches about 60 centimeters, it is heavy-bodied, and it is covered in beaded black and orange skin that is genuinely armored. The scales have small bones inside them. It is slow, extraordinarily slow. It spends something like 95% of its life underground, and it can go months between meals because it stores fat in its tail. Its venom is not delivered by fangs from above. It comes from glands in the lower jaw and travels up grooves in the teeth, which means the lizard has to bite and hold on and chew to work the venom in. Bites to people are rare and almost never fatal, but they are described as exceptionally painful, and the animal is very difficult to make let go. And in that venom, researchers found a compound called exendin-4. It turned out to closely resemble a human hormone that signals the pancreas to release insulin, except the lizard version resists breakdown in the body far longer. That compound became the basis for a class of diabetes drugs, and the same hormone pathway is behind some of the most widely prescribed metabolic medications in the world today. A lizard that eats about a dozen meals a year, in a desert almost nobody visits, rewrote the treatment of a global disease. Above it, in the air, is the only bird of prey on the planet that hunts the way wolves do. Harris's hawk lives in groups, not pairs, groups, typically 2 to 6 birds, sometimes more, made up of a breeding pair and their previous offspring, holding a territory together across years. And they hunt cooperatively with roles. Some birds flush prey out of dense brush, while others wait in position to intercept it. When a rabbit goes to ground in a thicket, one hawk will go in on foot after it while the others cover the exits. They relay in pursuit, taking turns at the front so the lead bird can rest. And after a kill, the group feeds together, rather than the strongest driving the others off. They also do something that looks absurd until you understand why. In open desert with no perches, Harris's hawks stack. One bird stands on the back of another, sometimes 3 deep on a cactus or a post, so that all of them get elevation to hunt from. No other raptor on Earth does this. Almost every other bird of prey is solitary, territorial, and aggressive toward its own species. The explanation appears to be the desert itself. Prey here is scarce and unpredictable, and it hides in vegetation that a single hawk cannot flush and catch at the same time. Cooperation is not sentiment. It is what makes the difference between eating and not eating. And running underneath them is a bird almost every American thinks they know and gets wrong. The greater roadrunner is real, and it is nothing like the cartoon. It is a large ground cuckoo about 60 centimeters long, and it does run sustained speeds around 30 kilometers per hour, which is fast for a bird that mostly refuses to fly. But it is not a comic victim of a coyote. It is a predator, and a genuinely formidable one. Roadrunners kill lizards, snakes, rodents, tarantulas, scorpions, and other birds. They take rattlesnakes, sometimes in pairs, one distracting the snake at the front while the other strikes from behind, seizing the head and beating it against a rock until the skull breaks. They eat venomous prey routinely, and they solve the desert's temperature problem with a trick that costs nothing. On cold desert mornings, a roadrunner turns its back to the sun and raises the feathers between its shoulders, exposing a patch of black skin underneath. That skin absorbs solar heat directly, which means the bird does not have to burn its own energy reserves to warm up after a night that can drop near freezing. It is running a solar panel on its own back. Now the animals that solved heat by refusing to participate in it. The desert tortoise spends most of its life in a burrow it digs, itself sometimes several meters long, and those burrows are used by an enormous number of other species, snakes, lizards, burrowing owls, rodents, insects, because it is the only stable, cool place available. Its own adaptation is stranger. A desert tortoise stores water in its bladder, a large reserve it can hold for a long period and draw on through dry months, which creates a specific problem. A frightened tortoise will empty that bladder. In the wild, an animal that is picked up by a person and voids its water reserve at the wrong point in the year can die of dehydration before the next rain. It is the single most repeated warning in every conservation program in this desert, and it is not an exaggeration. The javelina, the collared peccary, is out here too in family groups, eating prickly pear cactus, spines and all. It gets a substantial part of its water from the pads it eats. Its digestive system handles material that would injure most mammals, and the spines simply pass through. And in the rocky high ground, there is a bighorn sheep population that can lose a fifth of its body weight in water and then recover it in a single visit to a spring, drinking an enormous volume in minutes. Every one of these animals is running a different solution to the same equation. Water in, water out, heat gained, heat shed. Everything else here is detail. Let's pause here because what comes next is the strangest part of this desert, including the amphibian buried under this sand right now, and the wasp I promised you at the start. If this is holding you, subscribe to Doc Wild 4K right now. We go somewhere most cameras never reach every week, and subscribers always see the new ones first. Turn on the bell so you do not miss it. Now let's keep going. Because the thing that makes the Sonoran different from every other desert in North America is that it rains twice. Most deserts get one rainy season, if they get one at all. This one gets winter rains coming in off the Pacific, gentle, widespread, soaking, and then in July and August, it gets the monsoon. Moisture pushes up from the Gulf of California and the Gulf of Mexico, builds against the heat all day, and collapses in the late afternoon into storms that are genuinely violent. Walls of dust hundreds of meters high roll across the valleys ahead of the rain. Lightning strikes constantly, and then several centimeters of water fall in an hour onto ground that has been baked to the hardness of pavement. The water does not soak in. It runs, filling dry washes in minutes and turning them into rivers that can move vehicles. 2 rainy seasons is why this desert supports more plant species than any other in North America, and it is why an animal that has no business being here can exist at all. Somewhere under the ground, you're looking at a frog is waiting. The couch's spadefoot spends something like 11 months of the year buried, up to a meter down, encased in a layer of its own shed skin and mucus that seals moisture in. Its metabolism drops to almost nothing. It does not eat. It does not move. What it is waiting for is not moisture in the soil and not temperature. It is waiting for the sound. Spadefoots emerge in response to the low-frequency vibration of monsoon rain hitting the ground above them, the physical drumming of a heavy storm, which is the only reliable signal that enough water has fallen to fill a temporary pool. A light shower does not produce it. A passing vehicle does not produce it. A monsoon downpour does. Within an hour of that sound, the desert floor produces frogs from ground that was bone dry that morning. And then they are running against a clock that is measured in days. They find the new pools, they call, they breed, and the eggs hatch in as little as a day or two. The tadpoles develop faster than almost any amphibian on Earth. Some complete the entire transformation to a land animal in under 2 weeks. They have to because the pool they are in will not exist by the end of the month. If it dries too early, everything in it dies. Some spadefoot tadpoles respond to crowding and scarcity by developing into a different form entirely, larger with a broader jaw and stronger muscles. And those individuals eat the other tadpoles, including their own siblings, to finish development before the water goes. Then the survivors dig in and go back underground for another 11 months. Before the wasp, you need to meet what it hunts. The desert tarantula is large, heavy, and slow, and it lives in a burrow it lines with silk, not to catch anything, but to hold the walls together and to act as a tripwire. Threads run out from the entrance, and when something crosses them, the spider feels it from inside. It hunts at ground level, taking insects, other spiders, and the occasional small lizard. It does not build a web to trap prey, and it is not aggressive toward anything the size of a person. Its defense against most attackers is not the fangs at all. It kicks a cloud of fine barbed hairs off its own abdomen with its hind legs, and those hairs lodge in eyes, nose, and skin. A tarantula that has been defending itself for years has a visible bald patch on its back. Males live around 10 years. Females can pass 20, and in some cases considerably more, spending nearly all of it within a few meters of the same hole in the ground. And on late summer evenings after the monsoon, mature males come out and walk. They abandon their burrows entirely and cross open desert looking for females, sometimes in numbers, moving across roads and washes for weeks. It is the one time of year this animal is easy to see, and it is the last thing most of them ever do. The males rarely survive the following winter. Sharing the same rocks is the most venomous scorpion in North America. The Arizona bark scorpion is small, around 7 centimeters, pale, thin-bodied, and unlike most scorpions here, it climbs. It goes up walls, up trees, and it can hang upside down under a surface, which is exactly why people encounter it indoors far more than any other species in the region. Its venom is neurotoxic, and the sting produces severe pain, numbness, and, in small children, potentially serious symptoms. An anti-venom exists and outcomes today are generally good, but before it was available, this animal was a genuine danger in Arizona households. And like every scorpion on Earth, it glows. Under ultraviolet light, the entire exoskeleton fluoresces a bright blue-green. Nobody is certain why. The leading ideas are that the animal uses its own fluorescence to judge how much light is around before emerging, or that it functions as signaling between individuals, or that it is simply a chemical byproduct with no purpose at all. Walk this desert at night with a UV lamp and the ground lights up and points. They were always there. Now, the wasp. The tarantula hawk is a large wasp. Some species approach 5 centimeters, with a blue-black body and bright rust-orange wings that function as a warning rather than camouflage. It advertises. It does not need to hide from anything. The adult feeds on nectar and fermented fruit and is harmless to almost everything. The females hunt tarantulas. She locates a burrow, and she goes to the entrance and provokes the spider into coming out. A tarantula in this desert can be considerably larger than the wasp, with fangs that can pierce a fingernail, and it defends itself. Fights happen, and the spider sometimes wins. But when the wasp wins, she does not kill it. She stings it once, precisely, targeting the nerve center that controls the legs, and the tarantula is paralyzed within seconds, permanently. It cannot move again, but it is not dead, and it will not die for a long time, because a dead spider decomposes and a paralyzed one does not. That is the entire point. She drags the spider, often many times her own weight, back to a burrow, sometimes the spider's own, seals it inside, lays a single egg on its abdomen, and closes the chamber. The larva hatches and begins feeding on the living spider, and it feeds in a specific order, consuming the tissue that is not immediately vital first and leaving the organs that keep the animal alive for the very end. That way the food supply stays fresh for weeks. By the time the larva finishes, it has eaten the spider almost entirely and it pupates inside what is left of it. The sting is also, by measurement, one of the 2 most painful insect stings in the world. On the Schmidt Sting Pain Index, it sits at the maximum level, and the entomologist who built that index by getting stung deliberately described it as immediate, electric, and utterly incapacitating, advising that the only sensible response is to lie down and scream because you will not be capable of anything else for several minutes. It does almost no tissue damage. The pain is essentially pure signal, which brings us to what everything in this desert is ultimately arranged around. The saguaro cactus grows only in the Sonoran and nowhere else on Earth. It reaches 15 meters and can weigh several tons when full of water, and it lives around 150 to 200 years. Its life starts as a seed the size of a pinhead, and it almost always starts in the shade of something else. A young saguaro cannot survive direct sun and open ground. It needs a nurse plant, usually a palo verde or mesquite, to shelter under for its first decades. In many cases, the nurse tree eventually dies, partly because the cactus it sheltered has taken the water. Growth is close to imperceptible. After 10 years, a saguaro may be a few centimeters tall. It does not flower until it is around 35. It does not grow its first arm until somewhere between 50 and 100 years old. The body is a fluted column that expands and contracts like an accordion. After a monsoon, a large saguaro can absorb and store hundreds of liters of water in days, swelling visibly, and then live off that reserve through months without rain. And it is full of animals. Gila woodpeckers and gilded flickers excavate nest holes directly into the trunk. The cactus responds by sealing the wound with a hard scar tissue that lines the cavity, a woody structure called a boot, which outlasts the woodpecker and, eventually, the cactus itself. Those cavities become housing. Elf owls, the smallest owls in the world, small enough to sit in a human palm, nest inside them. So do purple martins, flycatchers, wrens, and kestrels. The interior of a saguaro cavity stays substantially cooler than the outside air during the day and warmer at night. The flowers open at night and close by the following afternoon, and they are pollinated by bats. Lesser long-nosed bats that migrate up from Mexico time to the flowering moving north along a corridor of blooming cacti and agaves like a chain of stations. Doves, bees, and other birds work them by day. Then the fruit ripens, and it is one of the few concentrated sources of sugar and moisture available at the hottest point of the year. Birds, coyotes, foxes, javelina, ants, and rodents all take it, and they distribute the seeds. The Tohono O'odham, whose homeland this is, have harvested saguaro fruit for centuries, using long ribs cut from dead cacti, and the harvest marks the start of their traditional year, timed to the arrival of the monsoon that the whole desert is waiting for. One plant. It provides the nest sites, the nectar, the fruit, the shade, and after it dies, its woody ribs remain standing for years and become shelter for something else. Here is what I want to leave you with. We call this a desert, and the word carries an assumption that it is a place where life did not work out. Empty, deserted. The word is right there in the name. Stand in the Sonoran, and that reading collapses. There is a rodent that manufactures its own water out of dry seeds and never takes a drink. A lizard so economical it eats a dozen times a year, carrying a molecule that changed medicine. A hawk that gave up solitude because cooperation pays better here. A frog that spends its life underground and comes up for a fortnight when it hears rain. A wasp that has engineered a way to keep meat alive for weeks without refrigeration. And a cactus that spends a century becoming an apartment building. None of that is life hanging on. That is life responding to a hard problem with an unreasonable amount of invention. The Sonoran is not empty. It is the most creative place on this continent, and almost all of it happens at night, underground, or so fast that we needed slow-motion cameras to find out it was happening at all. Tell me in the comments which of these stayed with you. The rat that never drinks water and kicks rattlesnakes in midair. The lizard whose venom is in millions of prescriptions. The frog that waits 11 months underground for the sound of rain. Or the wasp that keeps a spider alive while its larva eats it. Leave a like if this journey was worth your time, subscribe if you have not already, and share this with someone who thinks a desert is empty. Until the next one, go somewhere wild. Doc Wild 4K.